Okay, recording has started.
Okay, thank you, Albert. Good morning, everyone. Um, it's been interesting, to say the least. If you could have one word, just say one word to describe how you're feeling right now, can you put that in the chat for me? Let me just kind of comb the meeting to see where folks are, how they're feeling, how you feeling right now. Frustrated, yeah, okay. Overwhelmed, irritated, okay. Frustrated, stressed, grateful, chaotic, overwhelmed. Well, okay. So everybody's kind of feeling the same way. And oh, one person is relieved. Okay. Um, so I will say that all those feelings are real. Okay. It has been a roller coaster to say the least. Um, I will remind you guys that it's always difficult when you're changing systems because you're used to the trouble, right? We knew where all the bodies were buried. We knew how what to do to work around. So as we embark upon this new software, I ask that you give grace. Although it is very difficult, frustrating, and overwhelming, all those things at the same time. Um, I thank you guys for bearing with us. I will say that what we experienced this week was kind of new to everyone. I don't think anybody was, if you previously submitted, I don't think that you were expecting to find that there were errors on the submission tab. But that is what we discovered, and we will work through those things. I will say that as they continue to work through those issues, for those of you who are, even as we speak, finding new errors or issues within your reports, we will continue to work through those things, but we will not do another download. I will do one more download for corrections that are made today within the system, but I will not do another download. We're going to move to our clarification period where you correct in the spreadsheet. It's just too much happening. And if we keep moving the needle, moving the mark, we will never get through this period. So we kind of have to draw the line somewhere. And I don't know if Nick is on the call just yet. Nick, are
Yeah,
you
hey
here?
Carolyn.
Hey,
Yeah, yeah,
Nick. Hey. So I'm gonna turn it over to you first so that you could give the updates.
yeah, definitely. Thanks, Carolyn. So to start off, I guess with the child count items, then I'll move to some changes coming to the reports for the 25-26 school year. So you'll be able to see those other indicators with updated data. But I'll talk about that second. We're identifying that a lot of the difficulties folks are having now with errors appearing or disappearing relate to PowerSchool student movement. So you might have a student that exited or re-entered, and the combination of events in your event history then gets out of line. I know a lot of you have interacted with me on tickets where I say, well, you have two exits in a row, or there's two entrances in a row, and that's part of the problem. And I think that goes to what Carolyn said at the top of the call, is that we're spending a lot of time resolving those types of things, which aren't about the data that you are entering into your system, which is helpful to know we're moving to that clarification period next. I'm going to pause there and see if folks have any questions. I know we're working on Zendesk tickets with a number of you that were submitted in the last 2 days, and we'll continue to do that as we go towards tomorrow, which is the last time that OSIS will be downloading the data. Carolyn, did I say that accurately? That last download is tomorrow morning, or is that tonight?
That's tomorrow.
Okay,
That's to allow for any changes that will happen today,
today.
so
Yeah,
that we'll get them tomorrow, and that'll be our fresh basis moving forward with
yeah,
the clarifications as they continue to troubleshoot and resolve issues within the system.
yeah,
And we're going to
makes
do the
sense.
same thing with table four as well.
And then, Karen, I see your question. I think, Carolyn, that's best directed to you and your folks. If I did not
Yeah.
have any errors, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. We will work through the questions in the chats. And
Okay.
Emily, I have not sent the PowerPoint yet. We were still working on tweaking some things this morning, but I will share them with you when I send out the updated information. I'll send it to you so that you can have for your records. Um, yeah, if you did not have any errors, be on the lookout for that. the green light to submit your certification, and I will send that email out by close of business today so that you can get started on that.
All right, so if folks have questions open, we're gonna be working through those today in Zendesk, and then following Carolyn team's guidance going forward from tomorrow. And then also this week, this will happen on Friday. So if you're a person logging in on the weekend, you'd see this on the weekend or you'd see it on Monday. But indicator 7, 11, and 12 will be versioned up to next year, which means that come Monday, when you go into the shared folder and run the indicator 7, the indicator 11, or the indicator 12 reports, they're going to be updated to respect the current year. So indicator 12 will look for students turning 3 this year, not students that have turned 3 last year. Or indicator 11 will begin looking at timelines from this year, not last year's timelines. So you won't see anything different. You'll log into the same place and run the same reports. It's just going to be updated in place so that the dates respect the current year rather than the previous year. Are there any questions on that?
Nick, we'll defer all questions to the end of the PowerPoint.
Got it. Sounds good. All right, those are my 2 main items there, Carolyn. I'll pass back to you.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Okay, so for the 24-25 school year, closing out those reports, and it says by Friday, but the indicator 3, indicator 12, and the indicator 4 data from 24-25, those final results are now uploaded in your ADT for your records. Those are final, and the data that you see on there is what you should see on your data profiles, and also for the compliance factors, performance factors 2 through 5 on your determinations. That information will be in the assessment report that's uploaded into ADT. And as far as corrections of noncompliance, Elizabeth and her team will be in communications with you as to what happens next. I'd hoped that we would have the indicator 11 information finalized, but the internal team, they're still combing through that for you before we issue those final results. Yolanda is working on finalizing table 4. Table 4 as well as child count, we will not do another download. So whatever information or clarifications that's made within the system as of today, we'll pull those reports tomorrow and work from there as you continue to work behind the scenes with getting your data accurate within your system. I will take a moment to say that as we move to the future with federal reporting, it is going to be very, very important that your data is corrected within the system. And I know that some of you are having some true challenges with getting that information in the system. But once we determine why it's happening, then we could implement guidance on what to do to prevent that from happening in the future. But the reporting, the process that you currently know in the future will be changing. So that's a part of the delay in making sure that the data is corrected at the source. So bear with us as we embark upon this new way of submitting our data for federal reporting. So changes are coming, and part of what we did this year is to prepare for that process, for those processes. For the table 4 exiting report, this slide was created on yesterday. So Yolanda, I don't know. Let me know if this information still stands true. If your district received an email regarding students who received the South Carolina high school credentials, please make sure that you update the exit reason and the exit date to allow the students to appear on the 24-25 table 4 exiting report. And those students that appear in the report is July 1st of 2024 through June 30th of 2025. And this report is looking at their exit date or their status as of June 30th. And I know that some students return, but if they were inactive on June 30th, they should be included on the report. And I know there's a separate report that Nick was working on that has those students on there. So we look forward to adding that data into the final report so that we could get you a full report. Once again, if you're making changes within Ed Plan, please allow 24 hours for your corrections to be processed. Okay, so once again, any changes that's made as of today, so make sure you get those changes in. If you receive that email from Yolanda, make sure that you go in and update those exit reasons so that they can appear on the report and she can download tomorrow and we can close out that chapter as far as submissions and not submitting, when to submit, when not to submit. And just for transparency, we do not need the submissions. The submissions are to record the date and your assurance that you're submitting your data accurate. Okay, so that's what the submission is for, and that's a part of the future data reporting process. Okay, so that's why we emphasize so much, or so much emphasis on submitting, is because when we move to the future of reporting, that date will be sent over to the agency and they're going to extract your data from your system as of that submission date. So that's the chaos behind the submission and not submitting and when not to submit. So we hope to get to a point where by the time you submit, your reports are accurate and it is error-free, so that that date will be the true representation of your data that you've submitted. Um, and I see the question in the chat that says, what time today's the cutoff? I think that, if I'm not mistaken, the publish for the EdFi is like 6 o'clock. So you definitely want to make sure that your changes are, in your system by 6 p.m. today. Otherwise, you'll miss the mark. And it's not a bad thing. It's just that anything that's not corrected on your submission, you'll still have to make those corrections in your system. You'll also have to make the corrections in the spreadsheet, and that's what's going to come back to us. We understand that there are some issues that will not and cannot be corrected in the system. And for those districts that are impacted by that, you've been receiving instructions from Katie Heiss on what to do to get that information to us so that we'll know. But that's after they've exhausted all resources in trying to determine what's causing the errors and why. The enriched districts, if you have any students that needs to be added to the report, please make sure that you add them onto your submission prior to sending it over to us. I would also caution the enriched districts to check those same data points that we're giving the enriched districts. Check those data within your spreadsheets before you submit, because those federal rules apply to you as well, even though you're in a separate system. Okay. So to talk about the submission tab, and I know that there was a lot of emphasis placed on clearing the errors from the error tab, but in our February updates and in our October meeting, I asked you guys to also check before you submit the age, the race, the grade, placement, primary disability, just to make sure that the reports were accurate, and that part was missed in the process. So the errors that you see now, the errors that I sent to you, those were errors that were the bulk of them were discovered from the submission tab, and I would chalk that as an oversight, because I don't think that anyone was thinking, do I really need to check the submission tab? You're thinking that everything is good, but it wasn't. But nonetheless, this is where we are, and we're moving forward from there. So when I do my download in the morning, I am going to download the submission tab only and work from there. So based on what I've seen, it looks like the errors that are appearing on the errors tab are also appearing on the submission tab. So we're going to move forward to our clarification period. I don't think that you have to download any additional reports. I am going to send to you what I will download in the morning, and we'll work from there. It will be the your entire report with the errors or issues from a federal standpoint for corrections. I will also say that some of you have some early childhood issues or errors on your report. Check to see if those students are ages 3, 4, or 5 and in pre-K with a placement value of PPPS. That is a federal error. Early childhood students cannot have a PPPS placement value, only school age students. So double check those things. If you, if, if a multi-value error appears on your report, please submit a Zendesk ticket because that'll have to be corrected within the system. If students are missing from your reports that are not pulling on the sheet, basically when I send the document to you for clarifications, you will add those students to that. You have to fill in all of the data elements on that page. But you can add the students to that list. And then if you have students that are appearing that shouldn't be, let us know, and then we'll take them off of the report. Okay. I have updated the template that I sent on yesterday. In hindsight, I did not start the process from beginning to end. I kind of started at a static point, which caused me to omit some very pertinent steps. But in the new updated template that I will share with you, you can have and download your report anytime you want to. As long as the template within the system itself does not change, you should always be able to download your child count report at any time during the year, plug it in that spreadsheet, and it'll tell you what your errors are. So as we move forward, you could use that template as a validation. And I did have a typo in there. So when you're copying and pasting your data from the downloaded, you're actually going to copy from cell A2, not B2. So that's corrected and updated in this PowerPoint, and it will be updated in the updates that goes out next week as well for your records. We've also updated the template to allow you to sort. Um, because we do have some cells locked, and the cells are locked intentionally so that you do not overwrite the formulas or the columns with the formulas in there to change anything. So we wanted to keep that static for you, but I've gotten confirmation that the updated process does work and the spreadsheet does work as well. So thank you to those districts who were able to test it out for us and let us know. Okay. Just once again, just the things to double check on child count. Always, these items will never ever change. Even if we have a different system, these are the definite items that you always want to double check on your child count report, because these are the columns in the data that we are looking for to ultimately determine what is a federal error versus what's not a federal error. Okay. So always double check these things before submitting to the state. Okay. Some things to consider before before submission in the future, and I'm not talking resubmission of child count, but anytime that you're submitting for child count in the future, you want to always double check the DD. If you have students on your report that are DD and you know that they will not be reevaluated, or the DD will not be resolved by January 5th, just go ahead and tell me to remove them from your report during clarification, and we don't have to wait. We can go ahead and remove them and get you to a certification standpoint if that is your only issue within the report. The new date for the certifications is going to be January 23rd. I don't think we need that much time, but I felt it was necessary to extend the time based on all of the back and forth and the corrections that you've been having to deal with within the system. Okay. Errors from the submission tab were not necessarily reflected on the errors tab, which you thought everything was cleared, but it wasn't. But that's no fault of yours, so I don't want anybody to feel bad. But I understand the overwhelming frustration, irritated, all those adjective to describe how you're feeling, we get it. I will say that if you review your reports and you see something that's not flowing right, go ahead and submit that ticket, that Zendesk ticket, to get it on their radar. We see some instances where exited students are reappearing on the report. And so we don't want any students to appear in your child count report that have already exited, unless those students receive the credential and they're returning. That's a different kind. But if they've graduated and received a diploma, they definitely don't need to be on your child count report, okay? Um, just one thing that I did want to bring to your attention. So if the corrections are made within EdPlan, they are available within your system on your report within 24 hours. If the corrections are made in PowerSchool and published before 6 p.m., those corrections will appear in EdPlan after 48 hours, okay? Now, the third layer to that, if the corrections are made in PowerSchool and published after 6 p.m., then there's like a 3 days delay before that information appears in your system. So that's just some information for you to be aware of as we're going through this process, when your corrections are made and where the corrections are made, all factors into when that information is actually available on your reports, okay? Um, there are some errors that appears on both tabs currently, but if you run your report, from what I've seen and from what I've the message that has been conveyed to me, that once it's cleared off of the submission tab, it is removing them from both places. So we hope that it's working the way that it's supposed to, but if not, let us know, okay? You guys are our first line of defense, right? We know what the system is supposed to do, but you give us the insight on what it's actually doing, and that is valuable information to help um, clean things up and keep our processes flowing clean or clearly or accurately, if you will. Okay. There is a small population of students that are appearing on the report that cannot be corrected or updated within the system. If you are impacted by this, you should have a Zendesk ticket on file, and the resolution steps will be provided by Katie Heiss. She's working with those districts and Nick on resolving those issues that they're experiencing. And if you have been told to send an email to me, that's going to complete that process, and we'll need that email so that we can update the students' information within the Excel spreadsheets. Okay, just kind of wanted to talk through the error legend, if you will, on what we're seeing from the federal side. If the son's ID, it's not an error per se, it is a warning, because your state ID, your son's ID, should not have alpha characters in it. We've seen some instances where there have been students' names, United States or South Carolina listed as the son's ID number. Those will pose a duplicate within the state, and we will not be able to tell where that information or who that information is actually assigned to. So this is more of a red flag or warning, so that you can talk with your PowerSchool person to actually get those students a valid son's ID or state ID number, okay? The age. We're still seeing instances of P2XG, and in some cases blanks on the students, I'm sorry, that's great. The age, we didn't have any age, but I left it in there so that if there is an error with the age, it'll be it'll come to the forefront for you if you have students that are less than 3 and students that are 22 or greater than 21 appearing on your report. Now, your students must be 21 as of the child count date. So you could have some 22 years in there, but we keep the ones who are 21 as of the child count date. If the student is actually 22 or older, they are excluded. We do understand and recognize that there are some districts who have students that are older in your district. They're just not included or counted on any on your federal reports. The gender, there was some blanks in there. That's corrected within PowerSchool. The grade level, I'm sorry, yeah, the gender is corrected in Power School. That information comes over from Power School. So once again, if it's something that you have to correct in Power School, you're looking at least a 48-hour turnaround, okay? The race, Power School as well. Other is not a valid federal reporting race. We cannot have any blanks. So if you were impacted by that, please make sure you get that information corrected in Power School. The grade level, we still seeing instances of P2, XG, and blank within on your report. Those are invalid. We need the grade level to determine the appropriate placement code for the student. So that information is contingent upon something else. So blanks, if it's not correct, you're going to see an error on your report. Once again, you could make your corrections in the spreadsheet, but it still has to be corrected at the source. I will tell you that anything that comes from Power School, that information definitely needs to be corrected in Power School, because if you don't correct it now, it's just going to linger onto your future reports that you have to submit, okay? The placement error, we're still seeing instances. There was a couple of multi-value, and that the multi-values, you will actually contact support. The nuns and the blanks, those have been flagged as an actual error in your system, okay? From what we can tell, from what I've seen, the none is coming because the student most likely has a transfer comp services and the placement tile is missing, or there's a gap in something, that's a gap in the eligibility dates that's causing that information to appear blank. And Nick can correct me if I'm wrong on that. The primary disability, we know that that is due to a gap in your eligibility determination date within Ed Plan. So if you're missing a primary disability, you want to go to your events page. It does not change anything on the actual documentation. You're just changing the dates in the system to allow the information to flow through accurately on the report. And so you want to change, go to your latest eligibility determination date, and you want to change the event and the start date to 10/27/25 to ensure that it will count on the child count date. Your report will have DD students. I just cannot submit DD federally. That is a federal error. So if it's not going to be resolved by January, let me know and I can take them off so we can get you ready to certify. If you know that that reevaluation is going to happen before that date, once it happens, you're going to email me the new primary disability and the placement, if the placement changed for that student, okay? The LRE grade mismatch, and this is where the bulk of the errors came into play. So for that, when you look at your report and you see that LRE age grade error, you want to ask yourself, was the student in kindergarten on the first day of school or moved to kindergarten anytime prior to 10/28? Okay. If the answer is yes, was the student 5 years old on or before 10/28? If the answer to both of those questions are yes, then that student should have a school age placement, not in early childhood. Okay. If you answer no to either one or two, then that student is early childhood. Okay. So anything if 5K 6 through 20, ages 6 through 21, um, five and in kinder and ages 6 through 21, they should all have a school age LRE. Anything else other than that, they should have an early childhood. And I know there's an update that's coming in the system pretty soon that will document the LRE for the rest of the current reporting year, as well as document what that LRE will be in the next school year. So that's forthcoming. Also, your English language learners, that should not be blank. If it is blank, that has to be corrected in Power School and that information flows over, okay? Certifications are due January 23rd. Our first round requests will be emailed by tomorrow. So district, is it tomorrow? I got Friday the 13th, but it's actually Friday, December the 12th. So we'll start emailing that information out to those districts. Okay. Our year-to-year change, it is pending right now because we need to get the table 4 data completed. We just want to be able to send that to you one time. We don't want to have to do a back and forth. Remember, for the year-to-year change, there is no right or wrong answer. It's just to help us justify the explanation at the state level as to why our data as a whole changed. And so your inputs as to different things that happened or transpired within your district will help us to write our state explanation for the SPP APR. I do want to highlight and point out that your data for table 2 for the speech language, the information that you report in section D, that information is actually added back into sections A and C for a state total, okay? So you submit it to us separately and then we tie it back into the overall report. And a year-to-year change happens when there's a change in count of 50 and 30%. So both conditions must be met in order for you to submit a year-to-year change. Okay. And I see we have a lot going on in the chat. I'm gonna get back to that once I'm done going through the presentation because I don't want to get off track. The MOE and CEIS personnel report. The MOE and CEIS, I do have the link embedded into this PowerPoint for both reports, but the link itself is also included in the weekly updates that was sent out on November 24th. You can just click on that link and submit that information to us. And as I talk, Albert, if you could go into the MOE CEIS report and take that required validation off of the NCES number. I don't know, we don't have the link to that actual site so districts can get that number. So I don't want that to prevent them from submitting the report to us. So if you could take that requirement off of that field, that would be great. You can still leave the field, just not make it required. So you can submit your information to us. And the one thing that I do want to say about the MOE CEIS report, there are 2 fields in there where you have to give us a count. If whether you're required to set aside money or voluntarily set aside, you must have students, and you can't voluntarily set aside if you have been identified as significant disproportionality for that reporting year. So it can't be both, right? So it's either one or the other. And if you voluntarily set aside, you should have counts of students to enter into the spreadsheet. It should not be that you voluntarily set aside and you have no students that you're serving. So I will say the voluntary amount does come from GAPS. We get that from our fiscal team. So you don't get the option to set aside the money and say we don't have any students. So it works hand in hand. And these submissions, these reports are submitted by everyone. So no one is excluded from these reports. Everyone has to submit it. Also for the Table 2 personnel report that is due January 23rd, and it is also based off of your staff as of the child count date. Okay. And so if this report is a FTE, it's a full-time equivalency. It is not a count. It is not a one-to-one count. It is a full-time equivalencies report. So, and remember, child count was October 28th. So if you had teachers that came after that, they're not included in this report. I did want to take a few minutes to notice our indicator 8 reporting districts because that's coming down the pikes pretty soon, which is Allendale, Bamberg, Barnwell, Charleston, Florence 2. Greenville will be noted the last bit of your population that have not been surveyed or came up on the list in the last 5 years. Lawrence 56, Lee, Lexington 1, Palmetto U, Saluda, School of the Deaf and the Blind, Spartanburg 2, and York 3. You're on notice. I will say the voluntary amount does come from GAPS. We get that from our fiscal team. So I know it's a beast. I know it's a challenge, but please make sure that there's valid phone numbers, email addresses, mailing addresses in PowerSchool, because that's where the information is coming from. Um, we are only going to pull the students that appears on your child count report. So we're going to make this report static in time. So unless they're no longer active at the time, we'll remove them from the report. But if the students on your child count are still active in your district at the time we send this information out, those are the students that we're going to be surveying. So we're going to limit the scope of the students a little bit. And if they enroll in your district after the child count date, we'll catch them the next time around. Okay. Just remember that your students are surveyed once every 6 years. Okay. And your indicator 8 results, those districts that were part of the 24-25 reporting year, your results are uploaded into ADT as well for you. Okay. Don't alter the submission tab on the spreadsheet. Just kind of send it to us just the way it is. That this is once again just a formality. Okay. We really don't look at that spreadsheet. We pull the information directly from the AR report. Okay. So that's why we're focusing and pushing so heavily for your data to be corrected at the source, because if it's corrected at the source, then we are sure that we're getting the correct information. And you always want to double check your information. Anything that you're sending, you always want to do due diligence and double check for accuracy before you send it. Okay. Once again, we're seeing an increase in districts submitting reports to us via email with students' PII in it. Please, 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 please protect the students' information. That is a violation. Okay. Your submission to us represents that your data is an assurance that your data is valid and reliable and is correct as of the date that you're submitting it to us. Okay. We do look at whether districts are submitting late, whether they're submitting with errors, without errors. Those things play into your compliance factor 1 for your data submissions. Okay. Once again, there's a 24-hour delay on any corrections that's made in the ed plan. And if you're experiencing issues, please submit a Zendesk ticket. And if it's for federal reporting, you definitely want to make sure that you list and state what federal report that this error is impacting, as well as a couple of student state ID number. Okay. In rich districts, please remember that you submit your reports to us via ADT. In rich districts only, we only have 4 of them. Unless you are instructed to send us something in via ADT, your reports will be extracted via EdPlan. Okay. And we're hoping, Nick, that the 25-26 reports are available next week for 7, 11, and 12. We will not update table 4 until we're done completing the 24-25 report. Okay. Just want to notice those districts who may not know, ADT, Advanced Data Transfer, is a mechanism that we use to transmit data securely to and from districts when we have PII involved. Okay. It is also where we at SCDE, OSIS, place all of your final report results. So you always have access to it. And to request access, you will need to go through your technology department and request the following roles. These are the 2 roles that's applicable to us in OSIS for federal data collection and reporting. And it's the OSIS role, OSIS data role, and the incident management coordinator. Okay. And you're free to grant access to as many folks in your district as you wish. The amount of people that have access is strictly up to the district. That we don't control that. Okay. And the other piece of information that we use here that's important at the state level is deems. And so as you get new staff or folks are leaving your district, you want to make sure that you are updating their information in deems. For federal reporting, for anything data collection and reporting, we only send the information to the special education directors, the secondary contacts, and the special ed data managers. Those are the roles that we send the information to. We do not exclude anyone from those lists. If whomever is listed in deems for those roles, that's who will get our information. We do not because it varies from district to district, okay? So we don't exclude any roles. We just send it to everybody. So you want to talk to your technology department to update your contacts. I do a download at the first Monday of every month, and that's the list that I use for the month. And so if there are changes in your district, folks who are not getting the information, they may not get it this month, but when I do my update next month, they'll be a part of that list, okay? And I've just realized that I did not change this slide. So our next monthly meeting will be, and I need to look at that because we are planning our February meeting on February 18th. And I know that's a little off schedule, but if it's too close to the January meeting, then we'll forego the January meeting and just have the meeting on site in person February 18th. So you can put that on your radar. February 18th on site. It's going to be here in Columbia at the Phillips Market Center. We are also hoping that the reports will be updated. If the reports are updated, we're going to try to get our very first systemic verification check in, and that will be February 13th of 2026. Okay. Oh, here's the slide. Registration information is forthcoming, but right now, this is what we know. Our February monthly meeting will be February 18th at Phillips Market Center starting at 9 a.m. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to go to the chat. Team, help me out. Any questions, feel free to come off mute and ask questions.
Hey, Carolyn.
Hey,
Hey, you did say question time, right?
yes, yes, yes.
Hey, it's George McIntosh over in Baltimore. And I mean, I'm just gonna be really simple in what I'm requesting. Like, so we've gotten an email on Tuesday with steps that we need to follow, it sounds like. Can you just give us an overview of what you're asking us to do, when it needs to be done, and just give us kind of, because like this was very technical, but like I just need kind of the summary notes of like what do we need to be doing and when does it need to be turned in?
Okay, so so that was before I had a meeting this morning. I went through and looked at and downloaded the child count report and saw that we still had a massive amount of federal errors within the report. So I created the tool just to be able to help districts kind of comb through their data and just to have something at their fingertips to say, my report has errors, this is what they are. So column A in the report, I think it's column A, that tells you if it has like DD error or the LRE age placement, that's telling you what the error is. So if you go to those particular columns within the spreadsheet, that'll let you know where the error is for that particular student. Since we're not doing any more download, that's for your record. Once I do the download tomorrow and comb through the spreadsheet, if the errors are not corrected, you will correct in the spreadsheet and send it back to me. So we're going to kind of pivot from what we were doing. There will be some districts, I'm not Some districts will still be required to make changes within the system, but that's not going to hold up the report. We're going to give the guidance as we have previously that all changes or corrections should be made at the source and allow you and support to work through those issues. Some of the issues are not necessarily related to ed plan, but those are power school issues that has to be resolved. So you and the folks in your district will have to resolve or work through those issues. Does that help?
And so basically, we're just on standby.
I can't hear you. I know you're saying something. I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Okay, can you hear me now?
It's very, very low.
Yeah, sometimes my mic goes out. Can you hear me better now?
I can. Yes. Yes.
Okay, so I guess so for what we're doing, like the spreadsheet that you sent us, the LEA submission error spreadsheet, I followed those steps 10 times. I can't even get that spreadsheet to work.
Yeah,
Where
I have another one. I stated earlier that I had to redo some instructions on there
Okay.
because it wasn't flowing. The way that it works for me, it was not working for the district. So we had to revamp the process, the order in which things was happening. It's updated in this slide. I will send that to you guys, but you don't have to do anything. You can just keep it as a reference tool for yourself, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
And
Yeah.
so the errors that we do have, y'all are going to reach out to us if it has not been corrected in whether it be
Correct.
Power School or Ed Plan, and then y'all will let us know if we need to make any corrections.
Right. We're just gonna
Okay.
we're gonna pivot a little bit and go directly to our clarification point, which we'll tell you that these errors need to be corrected in our spreadsheet, but you'll still have to work behind the scenes to get those resolved within the system. We just have to move forward with the reports.
Okay, sounds good.
So,
Thank you.
sure. So for those districts who have not submitted or you don't worry about any submission at this point. We got you covered. We have the data. We're just using today as one last day of correction so that tomorrow when we download, any corrections that were made today or will be made today will be on the report. And then from there, we will tell you what's wrong within your data for you to correct in the spreadsheet and send that back to us so that we could have a final report here at the state and move forward for the federal submission. Okay. Once again, I do have to preface that you will still have to make sure that these data are correct within your system. Okay. It's just not going to stop the reporting process. Okay.
Good morning, Carolyn. This is Melissa in Georgetown. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, I think you just answered the question about whether or not we need to submit if we haven't submitted yet. So you've answered that question, but I did went in and make a correction today because I had a kid that was exited in Power School in June of 25 and had been pulling on the report, and I discovered that one this morning. So
Okay.
I inactivated that one this morning in Ed Plan. So that should be corrected in the collection you're going to do tomorrow, other than that one student, and I think you're already aware of, that will be excluded from our report.
Okay.
Thank you.
If that information, once we do the download tomorrow, if you have students, and this applies to everyone, if you still have students that are appearing on your report that should not be there, let us know. We'll take them off. You'll still have to work through support to determine why those students are appearing on the report, right? It's just that there are some things that's not there. It's very technical and it could be more of a processing issue that's causing the problem. And so we don't need to spend time working through that on this side of the things, right? So we just need to be able to put things in proper perspective and proper places so that we're handling and conducting our business efficiently, okay? Yolanda is going to send the email out about the Table 4 report. That's going to come from Yolanda. So when you see that information, and Yolanda will send an email to you, but I will also put that on our weekly updates. And I strongly encourage you guys, if you're not, to read those weekly updates because it does have a lot of good information in there for you, okay? Do the changes have to be made in PowerSchool? I made updates in EdPlan and was still notified that there were errors were present. So Jessica, I will tell you that after tomorrow, if you are still having errors that appear, we're going to make those corrections in the spreadsheet. And then you could still work to determine why those issues are happening within the system. But if the changes are made in PowerSchool, you're looking at least a 48-hour turnaround in order for those things to be visible in EdPlan. Okay. On when, well, Sonia, if you could come off mute and give me a little more clarification about what you're asking. While someone's doing that, I'm gonna go ahead. Nikki, you do not have to download. From this point, if you are downloading anything, you're downloading it for your records. I don't need anything else from you guys. No downloads. You don't have to do that. You can do that at your leisure, okay? We're just gonna kind of pivot a little bit and go into our clarification phase or stage, if you will. So just, Nikki, you don't have to do any more downloads. I'm going to take over from here. For child count, if we make changes in EdPlan, which will be reflected. Okay, so if you previously did a download I'm thinking if you previously did a download in your report and you know that you have errors or issues in there and you make those changes today, that should appear on tomorrow. But if you miss it for some apparent reason, we will catch it during clarification. And so that's where we are right now. We're just gonna pivot a little bit and go into our clarification period because we have to get it done by the federal era submission time. So we need to pivot a little bit. Okay. Is there a report that I'm running to catch the errors? So Jacob, that the template that I use is what I use to correct the errors, okay, to catch the errors. And so the updated template along with the updated instructions, if you should, and we're going to try to give you one for all of the reports. We're going to, that should allow you to capture any errors that I will see. I am only working from the submission tab. So if it's not on the submission tab and it should be there, then you will need to let me know that information, okay? What if students are missing now? So, and aren't pulled on the sheet. So if you run your report and you have students that are missing, or when I give you that report, if students are missing from that report, you're going to add them onto the report and then submit a ticket to support and let them know that there are students that are on your should be on your report and they're not there, and vice versa. If you have students that are appearing and they shouldn't be, you need to let support submit a Zendesk ticket so that they could troubleshoot that to determine why it's happening. Can you send the video? Okay. Okay. So, okay, I got you, Laura. You want me to create a video that walks you through the process? Okay, I could do that. I could do that. It may take a little time, but I'll definitely get it to you. Okay. To identify stuff. Yes, Kelly. When I sent the spreadsheet earlier in the week, we were operating from the instruction of all errors needed to be submitted, corrected before you submit. As of this morning, that changed. So we're moving forward, and just because we have to move forward. Okay. So the spreadsheet that I sent and the information on how to download all of that, that is just a tool for you to be able to use. And once again, I have updated it so you could delete what you previously received and use the information that's forthcoming. It is the new template with the new instructions on there. Okay. On the child count, you're saying the students we have to add data points are those for students that have transferred out, dismissed. Okay. Sonia, I don't, are you for child counts? So if you have students that should be on your report and are missing from your report, then you want to, you look at your child count report and add the data for those students, for the students in which you're adding to the report, okay? Just like previously, if a student was missing from the report, then you had to go through and send us, add them to the spreadsheet with the relevant data. And if a student needs to come off, you'll just tell us. If we accidentally submitted 11 and 12 under this year, you can go in, if you submitted 11 and 12 under the 25-26, you can go in and delete that. You can delete it anytime you want to. Okay. So just to verify my call nerves, we can sit tight. Yes, you can sit tight and wait until you hear from me. To clarify that. For the students that you need removed, when I send the clarification to you, if they are appearing on your report, you'll just type the word remove in the spreadsheet and I will take them off. Or if you need to add a student, you'll add the word add and fill in all of the required data. So sit tight. Yes, ma'am. Sit tight and I will get it to you. Data, adding data. Students. Yes. So once again, just to reiterate, if there's students missing from your report and you need them added, you're going to fill in all of the data points on that spreadsheet for that student and send it to us, and then we'll add it to the master report. Okay. And with 3 minutes to spare, anyone has any additional questions or any additional items need to be clarified? Nick, anything that you want to add or say?
No, nothing additional from me. I know I've spent a lot of time with some folks on this call and tickets, and I appreciate your collaboration.
Sure. You're welcome. Did we resubmit 11 and 12? No, you don't have to go back. We have what we need from last year. We have the dates already. So you're good. We're moving forward. Please clarify, do we need to request the DD student be removed? If for the DD students, if you know that they're not going to be reevaluated prior to January 6th, go ahead and let us know. We'll go ahead and take them off of the report so that we can get you certified, get you ready for certification. Okay. You're welcome. If there are no additional questions, that concludes our December monthly meeting. DD, the DD era is basically for students who are 10 years old and older. So if they're 9 and below in DD, you're fine.